One of Myers-Briggs' 8 introverted personality types is the INFJ. INFJs possess many admirable qualities, including empathy, compassion, and kindness. Unfortunately, these admirable qualities can make individuals vulnerable to being ignored if they don't value themselves. Let's look at 6 reasons why INFJs may be treated too leniently in romantic relationships. Why do INFJs get misunderstood? 6 factors you should think about. 1. Because INFJs are naturally kind and can be overly kind, they frequently get taken for granted. Giving is a natural trait among INFJs. They take pleasure in giving to others and take heart in the fulfillment and gratitude of the person they are helping. Assisting friends with a move, as an example, on a Saturday. Lending money to a member of the family. Purchasing nice gifts for each friend's and family member's birthday. One of their greatest talents is undoubtedly their inherent generosity. They run the risk of donating excessively if they lack the judgment to know when and to whom to contribute. Of course, the INFJ's default list of persons who deserve their efforts is made up of friends and family. However, there is an issue when the INFJ gives so much that it ends up costing them too much. For instance, the INFJ exhausts themselves by helping a buddy relocate on a Saturday when relaxation was actually required that weekend, since they are always willing to help everyone. Or giving money to a family member who desperately needs it for themselves. Or by always spending reasonable amounts of time and money on getting each loved one nice gifts. One of the traps for the INFJ is being overly kind and helpful. Others might quickly realize they can always rely on their selfless assistance. As a result, they can regard them as givens and enthusiastically solicit excessive assistance. 2. Because INFJs frequently struggle with setting limits, they frequently wind up being taken for granted. Since the extroverted feeling of the INFJ, symbolized by the letter F, enables them to be especially sensitive to the wants and feelings of others, they frequently place those needs and feelings ahead of their own. They might be too exhausted to respond to someone's plea for assistance, but they do it nevertheless because they don't want to let them down. Poor boundary establishing is a common issue that many INFJs face. They might try to tell someone they are too exhausted to help, yet give in readily when the other pushes the limits just a little bit. The INFJ can forego its own wants out of remorse, empathy, or low self-esteem. It is a failure to establish clear boundaries and uphold them. Tragically, the INFJ constantly shows others that boundaries aren't as vital by giving in to their attempts to establish them. Ironically, with certain people, creating boundaries becomes more difficult since they may now push even harder to get their way, making it more difficult for the INFJ to establish appropriate boundaries. As a result, others may take the INFJ for granted because they are aware that they will probably be able to convince them to do what they want, or because the INFJ doesn't defend themselves, leading to a lack of respect. 3. Because INFJs try to avoid conflict, they are sometimes taken for granted. Poor boundary setting, as indicated above, usually always goes hand in hand with avoiding conflict. The extroverted feeling and sensitivity of INFJs cause them to always work for harmony in their relationships. Physical discomfort results from conflict and emotional discord. INFJs experience conflict, erratic emotions, and strained social relationships viscerally because they are sensitive, often excessively sensitive. An INFJ finds any kind of disagreement with others to be physically unpleasant and overpowering, second only to emotional suffering. When they do engage in a conflict, it could take them hours or days to recover from the tension and unpleasant feelings it caused. As a result, the majority of INFJs are prone to adopting a pattern of completely avoiding conflict. Conflict that is unavoidable can easily result from setting boundaries and advocating for oneself. Although confrontation is inevitable when you stand up for yourself, the INFJ prefers to avoid it out of a fear of unpleasant emotions, overwhelm, and not knowing how to respond when someone keeps pushing on those set limits. As a result, they never learn how to create limits and must constantly avoid conflict. Because INFJs frequently lack the self-confidence to advocate for themselves, people may take them for granted. 4. Because INFJs frequently don't ask for what they want, they frequently wind up being taken for granted. As was previously established, the INFJ has a propensity to put other people's wants and feelings above their own. They are acutely sensitive to the emotions of others thanks to their extroverted feeling feature. INFJs are known to adapt to the social context at hand almost precisely, and with great ease, earning them the moniker social chameleons. They have an excellent sense of what other people need and how to make them feel at ease. For instance, if an INFJ senses that someone is growing uncomfortable with the intensity of their interaction, they will move farther apart and make fewer eye contact without coming off as frigid. They are reputed to have the ability to read minds. However, they can truly struggle to sense what is actually happening inside of themselves when it comes to reading their own minds. Because they aren't as conscious of what they genuinely want in various situations, this translates into them not asking for what they want. Additionally, INFJs are prone to thinking that they ought to be selfless. They may become overly independent due to their inherent generosity and strong demand for freedom. In other words, they can think it's weak, needy, or selfish to ask for what they want. Ironically, it is absolutely acceptable for others to seek for assistance, and INFJs are happy to provide it. Kind of strange, huh? As a result of their seeming lack of needs that others should take into account, individuals may be taken for granted. 5. Because INFJs are frequently highly critical and sensitive, they often feel taken for granted. Here, I'm referring to how an INFJ may view the circumstance. They may view someone else's actions as taking them for granted very fast since they are sensitive and critical individuals, and their threshold for this is low. The INFJ might be asked for a favor a third time by a friend who then fails to express sufficient gratitude for the favor. It can appear that this buddy is taking the INFJ for granted, but in reality, they simply forgot to say it out loud or were thinking of a fun way to thank them. The INFJ may decide as a result not to assist that friend in need again. The manner in which a question is posed to an INFJ can be crucial as well. INFJs frequently have a keen awareness of how they treat others. The warmth, respect, and dignity they demonstrate when interacting with people reflect their preference for harmonious relationships and social interactions. Because of this, they are allergic to anything that can disturb the balance. When it comes to how one should behave for themselves or others, being rude or disrespectful is strictly forbidden. Talking to an INFJ in a condescending, entitled, or dismissive manner will almost always result in the notorious INFJ door slamming in your face. Sadly, they frequently experience being taken for granted or feeling unappreciated, a trend that probably began in their early years. It's possible that their parents had trouble accepting the idea of their INFJ child's sensitivity. INFJs may consequently carry a deep emotional wound related to not being appreciated and overreact when it is provoked. 6. Because INFJs tend to draw toxic individuals, they are frequently taken for granted. Now add together the majority of the developing INFJs' aforementioned inclinations. Poor limits, the natural gifting without conditions. Avoiding conflict by not making their needs known. Tragically, this is a way to draw negative characters. Toxic people are those that intentionally or unintentionally strive to exploit others in order to enrich themselves. For instance, egotistical, dependent, narcissistic. and emotionally damaged persons who want all the support and resources they can receive from others. The unfinished. INFJ frequently interacts unintentionally with harmful people. The poisonous person prefers to only take, whereas the INFJ tends to only offer. On paper, this seems like the perfect combination, but in practice, it's a match made in hell. Only the toxic person's needs are addressed in this unhealthy interaction. Due to the exploitation of the INFJ's frequently compulsive humanitarian instincts, the INFJ is left to be treated as if they are a burden in this one-sided relationship. Conclusion. We've talked about a few ways that INFJs can be treated shabbily in relationships. The developing INFJ's tendencies play a role in numerous factors. Weak limits, avoiding conflict. By overcoming these vices and improving oneself, one may be able to change their perception of being taken for granted. How do you feel? Do all INFJs have this experience?